You know, right now, in this very moment, there's something weighing on your heart. There's something that's been keeping you up at night. There's a situation in your life that feels unbearable, and you've been carrying it around like a heavy stone, trying to figure it out, trying to control it, trying to make it turn out the way you think it should. And I want to tell you something that might just change everything for you today. It's time to put that burden down. It's time to leave it in God's hands. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but I've tried everything. I've prayed, I've hoped, I've worked so hard, and nothing's changed. And that's exactly the point. You've been trying to do it all yourself. You've been holding on so tight to your problems, to your pain, to your circumstances, that you've forgotten something fundamental about how this universe works. You've forgotten that there's a power greater than you, a wisdom far beyond your limited perspective, and an intelligence that orchestrates everything in perfect timing. When you're in pain, when you're hurting, when you're going through something that feels like it's tearing you apart, it's the most natural thing in the world to try to fix it yourself. We're conditioned to believe that we have to control everything, that we have to have all the answers, that if we just work hard enough, or think hard enough, or worry hard enough, we can somehow force life to bend to our will. But let me tell you something that's going to set you free. You were never meant to carry these burdens alone. You were never designed to figure everything out by yourself. And the moment you truly understand this, the moment you really let it sink into your consciousness, everything shifts. God sees your pain. Every tear you've cried in the darkness, every moment you felt alone, every time your heart has broken into what feels like a million pieces, none of it has gone unnoticed. None of it has been ignored. The divine presence that created you, that breathed life into you, that knows every single hair on your head, sees everything you're going through. And not only does God see your pain, but God hears your cry. Every prayer, every desperate plea, every whispered help me in the middle of the night when you couldn't sleep, every single one has been heard. But here's where most people get stuck. They think that because they've prayed and things haven't changed yet, that God isn't listening. They think that because they're still in pain, still in the struggle, still in the darkness, that somehow they've been abandoned. And this couldn't be further from the truth. You see, God's timing is not your timing. God's ways are not your ways. And what you're perceiving as silence is actually the universe rearranging itself on your behalf. Think about it this way. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't dig it up every single day to check if it's growing. You don't stand over it and worry and stress and try to force it to sprout faster. You plant it, you water it, you give it sunlight, and then you trust. You trust the process. You trust that beneath the surface, in the darkness of the soil, something miraculous is happening. The seed is breaking open, roots are forming, life is preparing to burst forth. But all of this happens in a time frame that the seed knows, not in the time frame you demand. Your life works the same way. The challenges you're facing right now, the pain you're experiencing, the situations that seem impossible, they're all seeds that have been planted. And yes, it's dark right now. Yes, it feels like nothing is happening. Yes, it seems like your prayers are falling on deaf ears. But I promise you, beneath the surface of what you can see, God is working. The universe is conspiring on your behalf. Things are shifting and changing and moving in ways that you cannot perceive with your limited human perspective. The problem is, we want instant results. We want our pain to disappear overnight. We want our problems solved immediately. We want what we want, and we want it now. And when it doesn't happen according to our schedule, we lose faith. We start to doubt. We begin to think that we're doing something wrong, or that we're not worthy, or that God has forgotten about us. But this is where we need to shift our understanding completely. Leaving it in God's hands doesn't mean sitting back and doing nothing. It doesn't mean being passive or giving up or resigning yourself to misery. What it means is doing what you can do, taking the actions that are yours to take, and then releasing your attachment to the outcome. It means understanding that you're not the one in control of how things unfold. You're not the director of this movie. You're not the author who gets to write every single plot twist. You're a participant in a much larger story, and there's a wisdom guiding that story that's far greater than anything you could comprehend. When you truly leave something in God's hands, you're acknowledging that you don't have all the answers. You're admitting that your perspective is limited. You're recognizing that what you think you want might not actually be what's best for you. And this takes tremendous courage. It takes tremendous faith, because it means letting go of control. And for most of us, that's the scariest thing in the world. But here's what happens when you really do this. When you really surrender your burdens, when you really trust that God has got this, when you really believe that the universe is working for you and not against you, a weight lifts. The anxiety that's been crushing your chest starts to ease. The fear that's been keeping you paralyzed begins to fade. And in its place comes a peace that surpasses all understanding. Not because your circumstances have changed yet, but because your relationship to those circumstances has transformed. You stop waking up every morning with that immediate rush of dread. You stop going to bed every night with your mind racing through all the worst-case scenarios. You stop carrying that tension in your shoulders, that knot in your stomach, that heaviness in your heart, because you finally understood that this isn't all on you. You finally realized that you don't have to have all the figured out. You finally accepted that it's okay to not be in control. And here's the beautiful paradox. The moment you stop trying to control everything, the moment you surrender to the flow of life, the moment you trust in something greater than yourself, that's when things actually start to shift. That's when solutions appear that you never could have thought of. That's when doors open that you didn't even know existed. That's when people show up in your life who bring exactly what you need. That's when circumstances align in ways that seem almost miraculous. But you have to understand something important. God's plan for you might not look like your plan for you. The way your life unfolds might not match the picture you had in your mind. And this is actually a blessing, even though it doesn't feel like it at the time. Because your limited perspective can only see what you think you want based on your past experiences, your conditioning, your fears, and your ego's desires. But God sees the bigger picture. God knows what you actually need to grow, to evolve, to become the person you're meant to be. Sometimes what looks like a rejection is actually protection. Sometimes what feels like a delay is actually divine timing. Sometimes what seems like a door closing is actually the universe redirecting you to something better. But you can't see this when you're in the middle of the pain. You can't understand it when you're in the thick of the struggle. You can only see it when you look back, when you're on the other side, when you realize that everything happened exactly as it needed to happen. I know you're hurting right now. I know you're tired. I know you've been strong for so long and you just want this to be over. I know you've been praying and hoping and doing everything you know how to do, and you're exhausted. And I want you to know that it's okay to be tired. It's okay to feel weak. It's okay to admit that you can't do this alone. Because that admission, that vulnerability, that honest acknowledgement of your limitations, that's not weakness. That's actually the beginning of true strength. True strength isn't about never breaking. It's not about always being in control. It's not about having all the answers or never showing your pain. True strength is about knowing when to hold on and when to let go. It's about doing your part and then trusting God to do the rest. It's about being willing to walk through the darkness with faith, even when you can't see where you're going. And faith, real faith, isn't about being certain of the outcome. It's not about knowing exactly how things are going to turn out. Real faith is about trusting the process even when you can't see the result. It's about believing that you're being guided even when the path is unclear. It's about knowing that you're being held even when you feel like you're falling. You see, God hears your cry not just as sound, but as the deepest longing of your soul. And the response isn't always what you expect. Sometimes the answer to your prayer isn't getting what you asked for. Sometimes the answer is getting what you need. Sometimes the answer is developing the strength to handle whatever comes. Sometimes the answer is learning to find peace regardless of your circumstances. Sometimes the answer is becoming a different person, someone who no longer needs the situation to change in order to be okay. This is the transformation that happens when you truly leave it in God's hands. You stop being controlled by your circumstances. You stop letting external conditions determine your internal state. You start to understand that peace isn't something you find when everything works out the way you want. Peace is something you cultivate from within, regardless of what's happening around you. And I want to be clear about something. Leaving it in God's hands doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you become cold or detached or indifferent. It means you care deeply, you give it your all, you do everything that's genuinely yours to do, and then you release the outcome. You trust that whatever happens, even if it's not what you wanted, even if it's not what you expected, it's what's needed for your highest good and your greatest growth. Think about the times in your life when things didn't work out the way you planned. Think about the times when you were devastated because something you wanted so badly didn't happen. or something you loved so much was taken away. Now look at where you are today. Can you see how those moments, as painful as they were, led you to something better? Can you see how those closed doors eventually led you to open windows? Can you see how what felt like the worst thing that could happen actually became a turning point? This is the pattern of how life works when you're aligned with the divine flow. This is what happens when you trust in something greater than yourself. This is the evidence that God is always working on your behalf, even when it doesn't feel like it, even when you can't see it, even when you want to give up. Your pain is not permanent. Your struggle is not your identity. Your current circumstances are not your final destination. They're just a chapter in your story, and the author of your story is writing something far more beautiful than you could write for yourself. But you have to let the story unfold. You have to stop trying to skip ahead to the end. You have to stop trying to rewrite every scene that doesn't match your expectations. When you're going through difficult times, it's easy to forget who you really are. It's easy to get so consumed by the problem that you lose sight of your own divine nature. But you are not your problems. You are not your pain. You are not your circumstances. You are a spiritual being having a human experience, and that spiritual essence within you is connected to the same power that created galaxies and orchestrates the perfect harmony of nature. That means you have access to infinite wisdom. You have access to unlimited strength. You have access to a peace that exists beyond all understanding. But you can only access these things when you get out of your own way. You can only tap into this power when you stop trying to do everything yourself. You can only experience this peace when you surrender your need to control. And surrender is not defeat. Let me say that again because this is so important. Surrender is not giving up. Surrender is not admitting failure. Surrender is acknowledging that there's a greater intelligence at work and you're choosing to align with it rather than fight against it. Surrender is the ultimate act of faith. It's saying, I trust that I'm being taken care of even when I can't see how. I trust that everything is working out for my highest good, even when it doesn't look like it. I trust that God has got this, even when I feel lost. This trust, this faith, this willingness to surrender, it changes everything. It changes your energy. It changes how you show up in the world. It changes what you attract into your life. Because when you're not desperately clinging and grasping and forcing and controlling, you create space for miracles to happen. You create an opening for grace to flow in. You become a vessel through which the divine can work. And God is always trying to work through you. God is always trying to guide you. God is always trying to show you the way. But if you're too busy running around in fear and panic and anxiety, if you're too caught up in your own limited thinking and your own desperate attempts to fix everything, you can't hear the guidance. You can't see the signs. You can't feel the nudges that are trying to point you in the right direction. Leaving it in God's hands creates the stillness necessary to receive divine guidance. It creates the calm necessary to hear the whispers of intuition. It creates the clarity necessary to see the path that's being illuminated for you. And when you start to see these things, when you start to notice the synchronicities and the small miracles and the perfect timing of events, your faith deepens. Your trust strengthens. Your peace expands. You start to realize that you're never alone. You start to understand that you're always supported. You start to recognize that even in your darkest moments, even when you felt abandoned, even when you thought no one could possibly understand what you were going through, God was there. God was holding you. God was carrying you through. And those prayers you thought weren't being answered, they were being answered all along, just not in the way you expected. Not in the timing you demanded, not in the form you thought you needed, but in the way that was actually best for you, in the timing that was actually perfect for your growth, in the form that was actually aligned with your highest good. Every single thing you've been through has been preparing you for something. Every challenge has been teaching you something. Every hardship has been strengthening you in some way. And I know it's hard to see this when you're in the middle of the storm. I know it's difficult to believe this when you're drowning in pain, but it's true nonetheless. Your struggles are not punishments. Your difficulties are not evidence that you've done something wrong or that you're not worthy or that God has turned away from you. They're invitations to grow. They're opportunities to develop faith. They're chances to discover strength you didn't know you had. They're doorways to a deeper understanding of yourself and your connection to the recite. Divine. And when you can shift your perspective to see your challenges this way, when you can reframe your pain as a catalyst for transformation, when you can view your struggles as sacred assignments rather than cruel punishments, everything changes. The same circumstances that were making you bitter start making you better. The same situations that were filling you with resentment start filling you with resilience. The same experiences that were breaking you down start building you up. This is the alchemy that happens when you truly leave it in God's hands. This is the magic that occurs when you surrender your burdens and trust the process. You don't become someone who never has problems. You become someone who handles problems differently. You don't become someone who never feels pain. You become someone who moves through pain with more grace. You don't become someone who never struggles. You become someone who struggles with faith instead of fear. And faith isn't the absence of doubt. Faith isn't pretending everything is fine when it's not. Faith isn't forcing yourself to smile when you want to cry. Real faith is being honest about where you are while still trusting where you're going. Real faith is acknowledging the difficulty while still believing in the possibility. Real faith is feeling the pain while still holding on to hope. Hope is not naive optimism. Hope is not denying reality. Hope is a spiritual practice. It's a choice you make every single day to believe that things can get better, even when you have no evidence. It's a decision to keep going, even when you're exhausted. It's a commitment to trust, even when you're scared. And every time you choose hope over despair, every time you choose faith over fear, every time you choose to trust God instead of trying to control everything yourself, you're building your spiritual strength. You're deepening your connection to the divine. You're becoming more aligned with your true nature. And this alignment is what ultimately brings the peace you're seeking. Because peace was never meant to come from having a perfect life. Peace was never meant to come from having all your problems solved. Peace was never meant to come from getting everything you want exactly when you want it. Peace comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. Peace comes from trusting that you're being guided. Peace comes from believing that God has got you, and God does have you. Right now, in this moment, regardless of what you're going through, regardless of how bad things look, regardless of how much pain you're in, God has you. You are held, you are loved, you are supported. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You will never be alone. The divine presence that breathed life into you at the beginning is with you now and will be with you always. This presence knows your name. This presence feels your pain. This presence hears your cry. And this presence is working on your behalf in ways you cannot see, in dimensions you cannot perceive, through means you cannot understand. Your job is not to figure it all out. Your job is not to make it all happen. Your job is not to force and push and control. Your job is to show up. Your job is to do the next right thing. Your job is to take one step at a time. And then your job is to trust, to have faith, to leave it in God's hands. When you do this, when you really do this, you'll start to notice things. You'll start to see how you're being guided. You'll start to recognize how doors are opening at exactly the right time. You'll start to realize how people are showing up with exactly what you need. You'll start to understand how everything is connected, how everything is orchestrated, how nothing is random. You'll look back at the times you thought you were lost, and you'll see that you were actually being redirected. You'll look back at the times you thought you were broken, and you'll see that you were actually being rebuilt into something stronger. You'll look back at the times you thought God wasn't listening, and you'll see that you were being heard all along. This is the perspective that comes with time and faith. This is the wisdom that comes from trusting the process. This is the peace that comes from leaving it in God's hands. And it's available to you right now, not someday when everything works out, not eventually when all your problems are solved. Right now, exactly as you are, exactly where you are. You don't have to wait until you're perfect to trust God. You don't have to wait until you have it all figured out to have faith. You don't have to wait until your life looks a certain way to surrender your burdens. You can do it now. You can do it right in the middle of your mess. You can do it while you're still hurting, while you're still struggling, while you're still scared. In fact, that's the best time to do it. When you're at the end of your rope, when you've tried everything else, when you have nowhere else to turn, that's when surrender becomes real. That's when faith becomes genuine. That's when trust becomes transformative. So if you're there right now, if you're at that place where you can't carry this anymore, if you're at that point where you need help, if you're at that moment where you're ready to let go, I want you to know that this is not a sign of weakness. This is a sign of wisdom. This is not giving up. This is waking up. This is not failure. This is faith. Take whatever burden you've been carrying and mentally place it in God's hands. See yourself physically taking this weight off your shoulders and giving it over to a power greater than yourself. Feel the relief that comes with releasing control. Feel the peace that flows in when you stop resisting. Feel the love that surrounds you when you remember you're not alone. And then, after you've surrendered it, after you've released it, after you've left it in God's hands, let it stay there. Don't pick it back up 5 minutes later. Don't take it back because you're nervous about how things will turn out. Don't grab onto it again because you think you know better. Let it go. Really let it go. Trust that it's being handled. Trust that it's being worked out. Trust that God's got this. This doesn't mean you'll never think about it again. It doesn't mean you'll never feel concerned. It doesn't mean you become completely detached. It means that when the worry comes back, when the fear creeps in, when the anxiety starts to rise, you notice it, you acknowledge it, and then you consciously choose to release it again. You say, no, I already gave this to God. I'm trusting the process. I'm having faith. And you do this as many times as necessary. This is the practice. This is the spiritual work. This is how you build your faith muscles and strengthen your trust and deepen your connection to the divine. Every time you catch yourself trying to take back control and you consciously choose to surrender again, you're growing. You're evolving. You're becoming more aligned with your true spiritual nature. This is not always easy. Some days it will feel natural and peaceful. Other days it will feel impossible and you'll struggle. And that's okay. That's part of being human. What matters is that you keep coming back to it. You keep choosing faith. You keep trusting. You keep leaving it in God's hands. And over time, something beautiful happens. The peace that felt temporary starts to feel more permanent. The trust that felt shaky starts to feel more solid. The faith that felt weak starts to feel stronger. And you realize that you're changing. Not because your circumstances have necessarily changed, but because you have changed. Your relationship with life has changed. Your understanding of how the universe works has changed. Your connection to God has changed. You're no longer someone who falls apart at every obstacle. You're no longer someone who's controlled by fear. You're no longer someone who thinks they have to do everything alone. You've become someone who knows how to surrender. You've become someone who understands the power of faith. You've become someone who trusts that they're always being guided and supported by something greater than themselves. This transformation is what's waiting for you on the other side of surrender. This peace is what's available when you truly leave it in God's hands. This strength is what you discover when you stop trying to be strong all by yourself and instead allow yourself to be strengthened by divine power. So let go, release your grip, open your hands, stop fighting so hard, stop trying to control what you cannot control. Stop carrying burdens you were never meant to carry alone. Put them down, hand them over. Leave them in God's hands. Trust that you are seen, trust that you are heard, trust that you are loved, trust that you are guided, trust that everything is working out for your highest good, even if you can't see how yet. Trust that your prayers are being answered, even if not in the way you expected. Trust that your pain has purpose, even if you don't understand it yet. And most of all, trust that you are not alone. You have never been alone. In your darkest moments, in your deepest pain, in your greatest struggles, God has been there. God has seen every tear. God has heard every cry. God has felt every heartbreak. And God is working on your behalf right now, in this very moment, arranging circumstances, aligning opportunities, preparing blessings that you cannot yet imagine. Your job is simply to trust, to have faith, to keep going, to take one step at a time, and to leave the rest in God's hands. Do this, and you will find peace. Do this, and you will find strength. Do this, and you will find that you're capable of handling whatever life brings your way. Not because you're doing it alone, but because you finally understood that you never had to. You were always meant to walk this path hand in hand with the divine, supported by infinite love, guided by infinite wisdom, held by infinite grace. Leave it in God's hands and watch what happens. Watch how things shift. Watch how doors open. Watch how solutions appear. Watch how your burden lifts. Watch how your peace deepens. Watch how your faith grows. Watch how your life transforms. Not always in the ways you expect, but always in the ways you need. Always at the perfect time. Always for your highest good. Always with love. Always with purpose. Always with grace. This is the promise. This is the truth. This is the way. Leave it in God's hands and trust that you are being taken care of, because you are. Right now. Always. Forever. You know what's fascinating? Right now, in this very moment, you're holding on to so many things that you don't even need. You're clutching beliefs about who you think you should be, worries about what might happen tomorrow, and fears about what people might think of you. And all that gripping, all that tension, all that effort to control everything around you is actually pushing away the very things you want most in life. It's the great paradox of human existence. The harder you chase, the faster things run from you. The tighter you hold on, the more life slips through your fingers like sand. Let me tell you something that might sound strange at first. The universe is not withholding anything from you. You are withholding yourself from the universe. Think about that for a moment. Everything you desire, everything you long for, every dream you've tucked away in the corners of your heart is already trying to make its way to you. But you've got your arms crossed, your jaw clenched, and your whole being tied up in knots of resistance. You're like someone standing in a river, fighting against the current, exhausting yourself, when all you need to do is relax and let the water carry you exactly where you need to go. When you were born, you didn't come into this world with a manual that said you had to struggle. You didn't arrive with a rule book that declared life must be hard. That's something you learned. Someone taught you that you have to push and force and make things happen. Someone convinced you that if you're not worried, you're not being responsible. Someone told you that relaxation is laziness and that letting go means giving up. But all of those ideas, every single one of them, is working against your natural state of being. Watch a child for a few minutes. Really watch them. They don't wake up in the morning wondering if they're worthy of breakfast. They don't question whether they deserve to play or laugh or be loved. They simply exist in a state of allowing. They're connected to that invisible force that brings everything into existence, and they trust it completely. They fall down and get back up without a story about failure. They want something, and they ask for it without shame. They live in the present moment because they haven't yet learned to drag yesterday's pain into today or to poison today with tomorrow's fears. That's your natural state, too. You've just forgotten it. You've covered it up with layers and layers of conditioning of should and must and have to. You've built walls around your heart to protect yourself, not realizing that those same walls are keeping out all the good that's trying to reach you. You've learned to be suspicious of ease, to distrust joy, to question peace, and in doing so, you've made your life so much harder than it needs to be. Here's what I want you to understand. There is an organizing intelligence in the universe that knows exactly what it's doing. It grows your fingernails while you sleep. It beats your heart without you having to think about it. It turns an acorn into an oak tree and an embryo into a baby. This same intelligence that orchestrates the movement of planets and the changing of seasons is available to you right now. It wants to work through you, as you, for you. But you have to get out of your own way. Getting out of your own way doesn't mean doing nothing. It means stopping the frantic doing that comes from fear. It means releasing the white-knuckled grip you have on your life and trusting that you're being guided. It means understanding that there's a difference between action that flows from inspiration and action that comes from desperation. One feels light and energizing. The other feels heavy and exhausting. One opens doors. The other runs into walls. Think about the times in your life when things worked out beautifully. Were you forcing them? Were you struggling and straining? Or were you in a state of ease, following your intuition, taking inspired action? Most likely, the best things that ever happened to you came when you relaxed a little, when you stopped trying so hard, when you allowed yourself to be led rather than insisting on pushing your way through. The problem is that we've been taught to trust our minds more than our hearts. We think our way through life, analyzing every possibility, weighing every option, trying to figure everything out in advance. But life doesn't work that way. Life is spontaneous, life is creative, life is always moving, always flowing, always changing. And when you try to control it all with your limited human perspective, you miss the magic that's trying to happen. Your mind is a wonderful tool, but it's a terrible master. It will give you 1,000 reasons why you can't do something, why it won't work, why you're not ready. It will replay every past failure and project every possible future disaster. It will keep you small and safe and stuck. But your heart, your inner being, your connection to Source, that knows better. That part of you knows that you are capable of extraordinary things. That part of you knows that you are worthy of all good things. That part of you knows that when you align with the flow of life, miracles become ordinary. So how do you relax into this flow? How do you let go when you've spent your whole life learning to hold on? It starts with awareness. Just notice how much tension you're carrying. Notice how often you're fighting against what is. Notice how much mental energy you spend on things that haven't happened yet and may never happen. Notice how rarely you're actually present in this moment, the only moment that's real. When you catch yourself in that state of resistance, that state of struggle, pause, take a breath. Ask yourself a simple question. What if this didn't have to be so hard? What if there was an easier way? What if I could relax right now and trust that everything is working out? You don't have to believe it fully. You just have to be willing to consider the possibility. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying. You stop carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. You stop carrying everyone else's problems. You stop carrying old hurts and ancient grievances. You stop carrying the burden of trying to control outcomes. You care deeply, you act lovingly, you do your best, and then you release the results. You understand that your job is to show up fully and authentically, and the universe's job is to handle the how and the when. This is where faith comes in, but I'm not talking about blind faith or religious dogma. I'm talking about a deep knowing that you are part of something much bigger than yourself. You are not a separate, isolated being trying to make it in a hostile world. You are an extension of the creative force that made everything. The same power that grows flowers and hangs stars in the sky is flowing through you right now. When you align with that power, when you allow it to move through you, your life becomes a reflection of that divine intelligence. But alignment requires surrender. It requires you to give up your addiction to struggle. And yes, it is an addiction. You've gotten so used to effort and strain that you don't trust anything that comes easily. You think if it's not hard, it's not valuable. If you didn't suffer for it, you didn't earn it. If it feels good, it must be wrong. These beliefs are poisoning your experience of life. What if the opposite were true? What if ease was the sign that you're on the right path? What if joy was your compass? What if feeling good was actually your natural state, and anything else was a sign that you're out of alignment? This is the truth that changes everything. You are meant to feel good. You are meant to be happy. You are meant to thrive. Not someday, not when you achieve enough or fix enough or become enough. Right now, exactly as you are. The reason you don't have what you want isn't because you're not worthy of it. It's because you're blocking it with your resistance. Every time you focus on lack, you create more lack. Every time you worry about what you don't have, you push it further away. Every time you look at your life and feel disappointed, you magnetize more disappointment. This isn't punishment. This is just the way energy works. You are a vibrational being in a vibrational universe, and you attract what matches your frequency. When you're tense, when you're anxious, when you're forcing, your vibration is low and constricted, you're literally closing yourself off from receiving. But when you relax, when you let go, when you trust, your vibration rises and expands. You become a magnet for all good things. You open yourself to possibilities you couldn't even see before. You allow synchronicities and miracles to find you. This doesn't mean you sit on your couch and wait for things to fall into your lap. It means you take action from a place of inspiration rather than desperation. You do what feels right, not what you think you should do. You follow your intuition even when it doesn't make logical sense. You say yes to opportunities that excite you and no to obligations that drain you. You stop living according to other people's expectations and start living according to your own inner guidance. And here's what happens when you do this. Life starts to feel different. Things start to fall into place with much less effort. The right people show up at the right time. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. Solutions appear for problems you thought were unsolvable. Money comes from unexpected sources. Love finds you when you stop desperately seeking it. Health improves when you stop fighting your body. Peace arrives when you stop resisting your circumstances. This is the flow. This is what happens when you stop being a dam and start being a river. You move with life instead of against it. You dance with circumstances instead. of battling them. You trust the process instead of demanding specific outcomes. And paradoxically, when you stop needing things to be a certain way, they often turn out better than you could have planned. But I want to be clear about something. Letting go doesn't mean you become passive or apathetic. It doesn't mean you tolerate abuse or accept injustice. It doesn't mean you stop having preferences or goals. It means you hold your desires lightly. You want what you want, but you don't need it to be happy. You work toward your goals, but you don't attach your worth to achieving them. You have preferences, but you don't suffer when life gives you something different. This is the freedom that everyone is seeking. Freedom isn't having everything go your way. Freedom is being okay no matter what happens. It's knowing that your well-being doesn't depend on external circumstances. It's understanding that peace is your choice in every moment. It's recognizing that you are not a victim of your life, but a creator of your experience. You create your experience with your thoughts. Every thought you think is sending out a signal, attracting matching circumstances. When you think thoughts of lack, you experience lack. When you think thoughts of abundance, you experience abundance. When you think thoughts of unworthiness, you create experiences that confirm your unworthiness. When you think thoughts of love and appreciation, you create experiences that reflect that back to you. This is why it's so important to become aware of what you're thinking. Most people are completely unconscious of their thought patterns. They think the same thoughts day after day, year after year, and then wonder why their life never changes. They complain about the same problems, tell the same stories, replay the same grievances, and magnetize the same situations over and over again. If you want your life to change, you have to change your mind. You have to start thinking new thoughts. You have to let go of the old stories that keep you stuck. You have to stop defining yourself by your past. You have to stop predicting your future based on your history. You have to start seeing yourself as the infinite being that you truly are, capable of anything, worthy of everything, connected to all that is. And when doubt creeps in, when fear tries to take over, when your old patterns try to reassert themselves, you gently bring yourself back to the present moment. You remind yourself that you are safe right now. You reconnect with your breath. You feel your body. You look around and notice something beautiful. You choose a thought that feels better. You don't fight the negative thought or judge yourself for having it. You simply redirect your attention to something that lifts you up. This is the practice. This is how you train yourself to live in the flow. It's not about being perfect. It's about being aware. It's about catching yourself when you're in resistance and choosing to soften. It's about noticing when you're forcing and deciding to ease up. It's about recognizing when you're in your head and dropping into your heart. Your heart knows the way. Your heart is always connected to Source. Your heart never lies to you. When something feels right in your heart, it is right for you. When something feels wrong in your heart, it's wrong for you. It's that simple. But you've been taught to ignore your heart, to override it with logic, to dismiss it as foolish or naive. You've been taught to do what makes sense, what's practical, what's safe, and in the process, you've cut yourself off from your most reliable guidance system. Start listening to your heart again. Start trusting those subtle nudges and whispers. Start following the path that lights you up, even if you can't see where it leads. Start saying yes to what excites you and no to what depletes you. Start choosing love over fear, expansion over contraction, possibility over limitation. Start living as if you are fully supported by the universe, because you are. The universe is not neutral. It is conspiring in your favor. It wants you to succeed. It wants you to be happy. It wants you to fulfill your potential. But it can only give you what you're willing to receive. And you can only receive when you're relaxed and open. When you're tense and closed, you block the flow. It's like trying to pour water into a bottle with the cap on. The water is there, the bottle is there, but nothing can get in until you remove the barrier. Your barriers are your beliefs. Your beliefs about yourself, about life, about what's possible, about what you deserve. These beliefs create your reality. If you believe life is hard, you will experience hardship. If you believe people can't be trusted, you will attract untrustworthy people. If you believe money is scarce, you will struggle financially. If you believe love is painful, you will have painful relationships. Your beliefs are self-fulfilling prophecies. But here's the good news. Beliefs can be changed. You chose them, consciously or unconsciously, and you can choose new ones. You can decide today that you're going to believe something different. You can decide that life is actually working for you, not against you. You can decide that you are worthy of love and success and happiness. You can decide that the universe is abundant and there's more than enough for everyone. You can decide that miracles are natural and magic is real. When you change your beliefs, you change your life. It's not an overnight transformation. You've been practicing your old beliefs for years, maybe decades. They're deeply grooved into your consciousness. But with consistent attention and intention, you can create new grooves. You can rewire your brain. You can shift your vibration. You can become a different person, living a different life. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to do it alone. When you align with the flow, when you surrender to the intelligence that creates worlds, you have access to infinite support. Help comes from everywhere. Teachers appear, books fall off shelves, conversations happen that shift your perspective. Opportunities arise that you never could have manufactured. You are guided step by step, breath by breath, into the fullness of who you came here to be. But you have to trust the process. You have to let go of your timetable. You have to release your attachment to how things should unfold. The universe has a plan that's far grander than anything your limited human mind could devise. What you think you want is often a pale shadow of what's actually available to you. What you're trying to force is often blocking something much better from arriving. This is why patience is so important. Not the patience of gritting your teeth and enduring, but the patience of knowing that everything is happening in divine timing. The patience of trusting that what's meant for you won't miss you. The patience of understanding that delays are not denials, they're redirections. The patience of believing that if something didn't work out, it's because something better is on the way. When you live with this kind of patience, with this kind of trust, with this kind of faith, life becomes so much sweeter. The struggle falls away, the anxiety diminishes. The constant striving stops exhausting you. You find yourself in a state of peace more often than not. You feel grateful for what is, even as you're excited about what's coming. You enjoy the present moment instead of constantly living in the future. And this is when the magic really starts to happen. When you're present, when you're grateful, when you're at peace, you're in your highest vibration. You're a match for miracles. You're aligned with Source. You're in the flow. And from this place, you don't have to chase anything. Everything you need comes to you. Not because you're lucky, but because you're aligned. Not because you're special, but because this is how the universe works for everyone who learns to work with it instead of against it. You are not here to prove anything to anyone. You're not here to earn your worth or justify your existence. You're not here to please everyone or fix everything or save the world single-handedly. You're here to be yourself, your authentic, magnificent, perfectly imperfect self. You're here to express your unique gifts and share your special light. You're here to love and be loved. You're here to experience the fullness of life in all its beautiful, messy, glorious complexity. And you can't do any of that when you're tight and tense and trying to control everything. You can only do it when you're loose and open and willing to let life surprise you. You can only do it when you trade your agenda for trust, your plans for faith, your fear for love. You can only do it when you relax into the flow and let yourself be carried by the current of grace that's always been there, always been available, always been waiting for you to stop resisting and start allowing. So what does this look like practically? It looks like waking up in the morning and instead of immediately checking your phone or running through your to-do list, you take a few moments to breathe and set an intention. You say something like, today I'm open to miracles. Today I trust that I'm being guided. Today I choose ease over struggle. And then you go about your day with that awareness. It looks like noticing when you're in resistance and making a different choice. When you're stuck in traffic and feel yourself getting angry, you pause and think, what if this delay is protecting me from something? What if I'm exactly where I need to be right now? You choose peace instead of frustration. It looks like catching yourself when you're worrying and redirecting your thoughts. Instead of spinning out about all the things that could go wrong, you ask yourself, what if everything works out perfectly? What if this situation turns out even better than I hoped? You choose faith instead of fear. It looks like saying no to things that don't feel right, even if you can't explain why. It looks like saying yes to things that excite you, even if they seem illogical. It looks like following your intuition, trusting your gut, listening to that quiet voice inside that always knows the truth. It looks like being kind to yourself when you mess up. It looks like forgiving yourself quickly and moving on. It looks like treating yourself the way you would treat a beloved child or dear friend. It looks like giving yourself permission to rest, to play, to do nothing, to change your mind, to be human. It looks like appreciating what you have instead of constantly focusing on what's missing. It looks like finding reasons to feel grateful, even on the hard days. It looks like acknowledging the good that's already present in your life, even as you're calling in more. It looks like seeing challenges as opportunities for growth rather than evidence of failure. It looks like understanding that obstacles are often redirections, pointing you toward a better path. It looks like trusting that if a door closes, it's because you're meant to go through a different one. It looks like letting people be who they are without trying to change them. It looks like releasing your need to control how others think, feel, or behave. It looks like taking responsibility for your own happiness instead of making it dependent on anyone else's actions. It looks like being honest about your feelings without being a victim of them. It looks like acknowledging that, yes, this hurts. Yes, this is disappointing. Yes, this is scary. And also knowing that you're strong enough to handle it. It looks like feeling your feelings fully and then choosing thoughts that help you move through them. It looks like celebrating other people's success instead of feeling threatened by it. It looks like understanding that there's enough for everyone. It looks like knowing that someone else's win doesn't diminish you in any way. It looks like being genuinely happy when good things happen to others. It looks like taking inspired action when you feel pulled to do something, even if the timing seems off or the path seems unclear. It looks like trusting those mysterious urges to call someone, to go somewhere, to try something new. It looks like following the breadcrumbs of inspiration wherever they lead. It looks like relaxing your body throughout the day, dropping your shoulders, unclenching your jaw, softening your belly, breathing fully, releasing physical tension so energy can flow freely through you. It looks like spending time in nature, connecting with the earth, remembering that you're part of something vast and intelligent. It looks like feeling the sun on your face, the wind in your hair, the ground beneath your feet, and knowing that you're held by this planet, supported by this universe. It looks like surrounding yourself with beauty, music that moves you, art that inspires you, spaces that feel peaceful, people who uplift you, anything that raises your vibration and reminds you of the goodness of life. It looks like being present with the people you love, really listening when they talk, looking into their eyes, putting down your phone, being fully there, recognizing that these moments are what life is actually made of. It looks like laughing often, finding humor in everyday situations, not taking yourself so seriously, remembering that you're a spiritual being having a human experience, and sometimes the human part is absurd and ridiculous, and that's okay. It looks like dreaming big without attachment, allowing yourself to want what you want, letting yourself feel excited about possibilities, and then releasing it all to the universe, trusting that what's meant for you will come, and what's not meant for you will make way for something better. This is the practice of living in the flow. It's simple, but not always easy, because you're going against years of conditioning. You're reprogramming patterns that have been running automatically for most of your life. You're choosing a different way of being in a world that constantly tells you to push harder, do more, be better. But the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. The more you choose ease, the easier life gets. The more you trust, the more trustworthy life reveals itself to be. The more you relax, the more everything you desire flows to you effortlessly. And one day you'll look back and realize that everything has changed. Not because you forced it to change, but because you allowed it to change. Not because you finally figured everything out, but because you stopped needing to have all the answers. Not because you became perfect, but because you became present. Not because you gained control, but because you surrendered control. You'll realize that the life you were chasing was actually chasing you, and it finally caught up when you stopped running. You'll realize that the love you were seeking was always within you, waiting to be acknowledged. You'll realize that the peace you were searching for was never lost, just covered over with layers of resistance. You'll realize that you are exactly who you needed to be all along, that you are enough, that you always have been enough, that you were born worthy, and nothing you've done or failed to do has changed that fundamental truth. You'll realize that life wasn't meant to be a battle. It was meant to be a dance. And you'll finally allow yourself to hear the music, to feel the rhythm, to move with grace and joy and abandon. You'll stop sitting on the sidelines. judging yourself, waiting to be ready. You'll get up and dance even if you don't know the steps, even if you feel foolish, even if you're dancing alone, because this is your life. This is your one precious, unrepeatable, miraculous life. And you get to choose how you live it. You can spend it in struggle and resistance, trying to force things to be different than they are. Or you can spend it in flow and allowance, trusting that you're always being guided towards your highest good. You can grip and grasp and control. Or you can open your hands and receive. You can fight the current, or you can relax and let it carry you. You can build walls, or you can build bridges. You can contract in fear, or you can expand in love. The choice is always yours. In every moment, with every breath, you choose. And whatever you've been choosing up until now, you can choose differently right now. You can decide that this is the moment everything changes. Not because your circumstances changed, but because you changed. Not because life finally bent to your will, but because you stopped bending life and started bending with it. Right now, you can take a breath and let go of something you've been holding on to. A grudge, a worry, a need for things to be different, a belief that's keeping you small. Just let it go. Feel how much lighter you are without it. Feel how much space that creates. Feel how much more is now able to flow into your life. Right now, you can make a decision to trust. Even if you've been disappointed before, even if you've been hurt, even if you've tried and failed, you can decide that this time is different because you're approaching it differently. You're not forcing, you're not controlling, you're simply showing up as your authentic self and allowing life to meet you there. Right now, you can remember who you really are, not the small, scared, limited version of yourself that you sometimes believe in, but the vast, powerful, infinite being that you truly are. The one who chose to be here in this body at this time for a reason. The one who has everything within them that they need. The one who is never alone because they're always connected to Source. You are that. You have always been that. You will always be that. Nothing you do or don't do can change the essential truth of your being. You are a divine creation, an expression of love, a channel for miracles. And when you remember this, when you align with this, when you live from this place, everything changes, not overnight, not without effort, not without challenges, but steadily, surely, beautifully, your life transforms into something that reflects your true nature. You become a living example of what's possible when you stop resisting life and start allowing it. You become a demonstration of grace in action. You become a beacon of light in a world that desperately needs more people who are willing to shine. This is what you're here for. Not to play small, not to stay safe, not to fit in, but to be fully, magnificently, unapologetically yourself. To let your light shine so brightly that it illuminates the path for others. To live in such a state of joy and peace and love that others are inspired to find their own way there. And you do that by relaxing, by letting go, by trusting, by flowing, by being who you already are instead of trying to become who you think you should be, by accepting what is instead of fighting for what isn't, by embracing this moment, this life, this beautiful, messy, perfect experience of being human. So relax. Right now, as you're hearing these words, just relax. Drop your shoulders, soften your face, breathe deeply, let go of whatever you're carrying that isn't yours to carry. Release whatever you're holding that's no longer serving you. Surrender whatever you're resisting that's blocking your good. And know that as you do this, as you make space, as you open up, as you allow, the universe rushes in to fill that space with everything you've been longing for. Not because you finally earned it or deserved it or figured out the secret, but because that's what the universe does. It fills empty spaces, it flows into openings, it responds to allowance. You are allowing right now, and in this allowing, you are attracting, you are magnetizing, you are calling forth everything that matches this new, higher vibration. You are creating space for miracles. You are opening doors to possibilities. You are saying yes to life, and life is saying yes back to you. This is the flow. This is the way. This is how you create a life that feels good, that works easily, that reflects your true nature. Not by forcing, but by allowing. Not by struggling, but by surrendering. Not by controlling, but by trusting. And every time you choose this, every time you remember this, every time you practice this, you strengthen this new way of being. It becomes more natural, more automatic, more who you are, until one day you realize you're not even trying anymore. You're just being, you're just flowing. You're just living in alignment with the infinite intelligence that creates and sustains all life. And from that place, anything is possible. Everything is available. Nothing is out of reach. Because you're no longer standing in your own way. You're no longer blocking your good. You're no longer resisting your highest potential. You're simply allowing it all to unfold exactly as it's meant to, in perfect timing, with grace and ease and joy. This is your birthright. This is your natural state. This is who you've always been underneath all the conditioning and programming and fear. Welcome home. Welcome back to yourself. Welcome to the flow.